He was served coffee with the word loser written on the cup and then humiliated in front of an entire room just for wearing a red MAGA hat. The barista mockingly poured his drink into the trash, convinced she would never see this customer again. But she didn't know one thing. This man owned the entire coffee chain. How he reacted to their bias shocked everyone in the room. Michael Cartwright, a 45-year-old man with a friendly expression, walks into a bustling popular cafe in the heart of the city. He's dressed simply. Jeans, a gray t-shirt, and a bright red hat with the words MAGA emblazoned across the front. The air is filled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, the lively voices of staff behind the counter, and the hum of patrons deep in conversation. Michael joins the line, pulling out his phone to check messages, seemingly oblivious to the stares starting to dart in his direction. Behind the counter stands Emma, a young barista in her mid-20s with brightly dyed hair and a sarcastic expression. The moment she spots the red hat on Michael's head, her smile stiffens, and her voice grows louder as she speaks to a colleague. "Another wave of MAGA fans today. Do you think they even realize it's all a circus?" Michael steps forward as his turn arrives, calmly saying, "One large latte, please." Emma narrows her eyes, pretending to jot down the order, but unable to resist a jab. "Nice taste in hats. I bet your coffee preferences are just as refined." The surrounding customers begin whispering, and someone discreetly starts recording on their phone. Michael remains unbothered, his demeanor composed. Emma, determined to drag things out, pretends not to hear him at first, then repeatedly messes up entering his order into the register. One of her co-workers softly whispers, "Maybe you should ease up. He didn't do anything." To which Emma scoffs, "Oh, relax. He needs to know he's not welcome here." When the drink is finally ready, Emma deliberately slams the cup on the counter. Michael notices the word loser scrawled on it instead of his name. He picks it up without a word, takes a sip, and realizes it's not even the latte he ordered, but a strong espresso without sugar or milk. "Excuse me," he says calmly, holding the cup up. "I think this isn't my order." Emma rolls her eyes dramatically. "Are you sure you still want to stay here? Maybe you'd be happier somewhere that actually appreciates people like you." The cafe crowd begins murmuring louder. Some chuckle, but others exchange puzzled glances. Michael, pausing briefly, replies quietly and politely, "Looks like we're off to a rough start this morning. Could you remake my order, please?" But Emma isn't done yet. She grabs the cup and pours the contents into the sink with a flourish before tossing the empty cup into the trash. "Done. Next customer, please." Michael gazes at her steadily. His face remains calm, but his eyes harden with a glint of resolve. Instead of leaving, he steps aside and heads toward a door marked office. The crowd begins whispering again as Emma, confused, calls after him, "Hey, where are you going?" Michael returns to the counter after a brief visit to the manager's office, saying nothing, as though nothing had happened. His composure seems to irritate Emma even more. She leans toward a co-worker, clearly discussing Michael in hushed tones. A few minutes later, her loud voice cuts through the cafe. "Next!" Michael steps forward again. Emma, arms crossed, looks at him with feigned indifference, her eyes brimming with disdain. "What'll it be this time?" "Hopefully you've made up your mind so we don't waste more of our time." Michael smiles gently and says, "The same latte, please." Emma sighs exaggeratedly, but starts making the drink. Her movements are deliberate and slow. She drops a spoon, noisily retrieves another, and fumbles with the cup. A co-worker nearby tries to intervene. "Emma, maybe I should take over? There's a line." No. I insist on finishing this very important task myself," she responds, dripping with sarcasm. At last, the drink is ready. Emma places the cup on the counter with a theatrical flourish, letting it nearly slide off the edge. This time, the cup is labeled with the word dumb. The murmurs among the customers grow louder. Someone in line gestures toward Michael, silently urging him to just walk away. But Michael calmly picks up the cup, glances at the label, and sets it back on the counter. "It seems there's been another mistake with my order," he says evenly. Emma can't hold back her sneer. Mistake? Maybe you should just leave. People like you don't belong here. We're not obligated to serve bigots. Michael studies her with steady eyes and asks, "Is that the cafe's official policy, or just your personal opinion?" Emma lets out a mocking laugh. "Oh, are you going to talk to the manager? Good luck with that. He'll say the same thing." A voice behind her interrupts. "Emma, that's enough. This is going too far." She spins around, seeing it's just another coworker, and waves them off. "Stay out of it. I've got this." But the coworker persists. "You can't just take your anger out on customers. What if he files a complaint?" Emma snickers. "Let him. I'm not scared." Meanwhile, patrons begin pulling out their phones. Some record the scene, while others openly discuss what's unfolding. A young man in line raises his hand and asks Michael, "Do you need help? This is over the top." Michael politely responds, "Thank you, but I can handle it." The tension in the room thickens. Sensing the growing attention, Emma decides to up the ante. She grabs the cup of coffee, pretends to hand it to Michael, then deliberately pours it into the trash. "Oops, spilled it. Want to wait for another one?" The room falls silent for a moment. Michael slowly places his hands in his pockets, looks around, and then speaks in a clear, steady voice. "I think that will do. But before I leave, I'll need to place one more order. From your office." Emma smirks. "Oh, by all means. Go complain to the manager. See how far that gets you." Michael nods, turns, and walks calmly toward the door, marked Office, the one he had already visited earlier. The cafe is abuzz with whispers, while Emma stares after him, confusion flickering across her face as she fails to piece together what's about to happen. It had only been a few minutes since Michael entered the office, but Emma continued mocking him loudly, making exaggerated comments to her co-workers and customers. Can you believe this guy actually thinks someone's going to listen to him? What's he going to do? Try to buy everyone off with his MAGA scarf? The cafe patrons, many of whom were now recording the scene on their phones, exchanged uneasy glances as the situation became more tense. Suddenly, the office door opened, and Michael stepped out, accompanied by a man in a sharp suit. Jonathan Rivers, the regional director of the cafe chain. His face was serious and professional as he strode confidently toward the counter where Emma stood. "All staff, come to the counter immediately," Jonathan announced loudly, his voice commanding attention. Emma froze, her bravado disappearing instantly. She tried to explain herself. "Mr. Rivers, I was just about to finish his order, but this man—" Jonathan raised his hand, cutting her off. "We're not discussing specifics right now. All staff, here." The other baristas, including Emma's co-worker who had earlier tried to intervene, gathered around, exchanging nervous glances. Customers fell silent, watching the drama unfold. Michael stood slightly to the side, observing the scene with quiet composure. Jonathan gestured toward Michael and began speaking. "Allow me to introduce Michael Cartwright, the new owner of this cafe chain. He came here incognito to observe how our team operates." A wave of shock rippled through the cafe. Emma's face went pale, and her expression twisted with confusion and panic. The owner! This must be some mistake." Jonathan fixed her with a cold stare. "The mistakes here were made, but they were made by you." Michael stepped forward, addressing the staff, but speaking loud enough for the customers to hear. "I've always believed that the success of any business depends on treating every person who walks through our doors with respect. Today, I witnessed my order being sabotaged and myself subjected to insults." Emma tried to interject. "This is just a misunderstanding. I didn't mean anything by it." Michael's calm gaze rested on her. "Writing loser on my cup, is that just a misunderstanding? Pouring my drink into the trash, was that just a joke?" Jonathan didn't wait for her to respond. "All of these actions are in direct violation of our company's standards. We do not tolerate discrimination or bias against any customer." Emma, realizing she was losing ground, tried to go on the offensive. "Look at him! You see what he's wearing? That's a provocation! Jonathan paused for a moment, then pointed toward the door. The only provocation here is your behavior. You're terminated effective immediately. The cafe erupted in gasps. Some customers began clapping, while others simply stared as Emma, desperate to save face, shouted, "You'll regret this! That man! This is unfair!" Michael's voice was steady as he addressed the rest of the team. No one should ever feel afraid to be themselves in our cafes. But if anyone here doesn't share that philosophy, the door is open. The room fell silent as Emma, seeing no way out, stormed out of the cafe, slamming the door behind her. The customers began murmuring their approval, and some even approached Michael to express their support. The remaining staff looked shaken, but Michael gave them a reassuring smile and said, "Let's get back to work. We have customers who love our coffee." After Emma left the cafe, the tense atmosphere began to ease. Michael stepped closer to the counter, addressing the remaining staff, who still looked uncertain and shaken. "Listen," he began, his voice calm but firm. "I know what happened today was a shock for all of us, but today is an opportunity to learn and grow. If any of you have concerns or questions, I'm open to discussing them." The baristas exchanged glances before Sarah, a young employee who had earlier tried to intervene, spoke up hesitantly. "Mr. Cartwright, we're really sorry for everything that happened. Emma, she's always been a little harsh, but we didn't think it would go this far." Michael nodded gently. "I appreciate your honesty, Sarah. I don't want anyone here to feel unsafe or undervalued. We're a team. If you're here, it means you're valuable to this company." Jonathan, who had been standing nearby, added, "In the coming days, we'll be holding additional training sessions on customer service. But let me make this clear. Respect is the foundation of our work. If anyone can't align with that principle, this isn't the place for them." Meanwhile, the customers who had witnessed the incident began approaching Michael. One man in his 40s extended a hand to him. "Excuse me, I couldn't help but record everything that happened. If you'd like, I can send you the footage." Michael shook his hand and replied, "Thank you. I think that video might serve as an important reminder for us all." An older woman with a kind face joined in. "You handled that with such dignity, young man. If everyone acted like that, the world would be a better place." Michael smiled warmly at her and then turned to Jonathan. "Let's get coffee made for everyone who's waiting. The first round's on me," he announced. The crowd broke into applause, the tension in the room finally dissolving. Inspired by Michael's actions, the remaining baristas worked quickly and efficiently to serve customers, regaining their energy and focus. A little while later, when the line had thinned, Michael sat at a table with a fresh latte. Sarah approached him, holding a notepad. "Sorry to bother you, but can I ask you something? How did you stay so calm through all of that?" Michael took a sip of his coffee, reflecting for a moment. "Staying calm isn't weakness. It's a way to show that insults and prejudice can't shake you. If I had lost my temper, I would have lost the chance to make things better. But by staying composed, I can start to create change." Sarah nodded, clearly impressed, and returned to her work with a new sense of purpose. By the end of the day, news of the incident spread online. Videos recorded by customers went viral, with headlines like, "New cafe owner stands up to disrespectful staff," and a masterclass in leadership under pressure. That evening, Michael received a call from a journalist. "Mr. Cartwright, your video has become a sensation. People are praising your composure. Do you have any comment?" Michael's response was brief, but powerful. "Respect is what makes us stronger. That's all the comment you need." In the final scene, Michael is back at the cafe. This time, the atmosphere is warm and welcoming. A new barista, who replaced Emma, serves him a perfectly made latte with a genuine smile. Michael takes a sip, looks around at the smiling customers enjoying their drinks, and knows the changes he started will have a lasting impact.